Thank you for coming out tonight. It's funny, for some reason this made me nervous coming up tonight. I don't know why, because I don't want to appear to be a self-promoter, but I guess some of the stuff I have is about public service, and I wanted to relay all that to you. But first, I want to thank Joanne Esposito for this great endeavor she took on the past year for the 300th anniversary committee. That committee worked as hard as anyone I've ever seen in the past year. They really put this town on the map, and everyone's noticed. I mean, between the Wakefield, the way it's been decorated, to monthly events, but the town is very indebted to the 300th anniversary committee. So thank you again, Joanne. We'll thank you appropriately on Thursday. So I'd like to recognize just a couple of people here. So my wife Tracy is right here, my beautiful wife Tracy. She's the brains of the operation. So we've been married for 30 years. We've lived in South Kingstown for 24 of them, and it's been a wonderful ride here in this great town that we all live in. So let me start off by saying this. I'm the last speaker in this series that's going on for a year. So either, I guess the worst goes last, right? So I mean, I guess we could say that. But I was very happy to be asked about to come here tonight about a year ago, and it's a high bar. We've had some tremendous speakers here. We've had some very interesting topics, and I hope I don't disappoint. The nexus for me coming here tonight is because I am a history buff, and I love history of Rhode Island, of the United States, history of Rhode Island, but really about the Rhode Island State Police. I love the history of the Rhode Island State Police. I love that agency. I bled, red and gray for nearly 30 years. There's one other person I'd like to recognize tonight, Lieutenant Ken Bowman. Ken, if you could raise your hand for me. So, Ken Bowman was one of my field training officers. I didn't know he was going to be here tonight, but thanks for staying loyal to me, Ken. And he did his 25 years on the state police very honorably. He was one of the first troopers to break me in, and it's very humbling to see him sitting in the crowd. And he looks younger than me now, but thanks for coming, Ken. He's also very instrumental in the Rhode Island State Police Museum Foundation at headquarters in North Situate. So tonight is going to be, you get that picture up yet? No, not yet. So tonight is going to be not about just the Rhode Island State Police and the connection to South Kingston, which is really a tremendous connection. Not just about me being a town manager. It's going to be about this voyage I've been on for 40 years in public service. And I wouldn't change a thing. I've loved every minute of it and every position I've had. I'm very proud of it. And it's been an honor to serve people at the federal level, the state level, and the local level. And people will ask me, what level did you like the best? And honestly, I like the local level. The federal level, I spent 6 years as a federal agent, first in the IRS, then the U.S. Secret Service. Then I became a trooper for a total of about 29 years. But the local level, Narragansett was great. South Kingston is just as good and better because I live here. And so, but the local level, you can really make a difference, and that's something I also think about every day when I go to my office. If I do the right thing that day, I could benefit someone, I can change someone's life. Whereas the federal and the state level, it's a little more, you're in a bigger pool there, and especially in the federal government, it's very tough to make changes there. I'll give you my background so that you can understand my perspective on why I am where I am, doing what I'm doing. So I come from Cranston, Rhode Island. I'm Italian, and I come from a big Italian family. My mother had 13 brothers and sisters. My father came from 8 boys and a girl, a sister. So I guess the winters were very cold there in Cranston, and they multiplied. So, but I came from a very large family. I tried to count today. I counted about 40 aunts and uncles, and well over 50 cousins, and I think that's on one side. But I came from very humble roots. My family, middle class, they worked very hard to achieve what they achieved, and that's something I'm very proud of. They instilled in me, hard work's the only way you're gonna get ahead here, so get used to it. I was the first one in my family, my first boy, to graduate University of Rhode Island, to graduate college. And that's something I'm very proud of too, because I paid every dollar for it. My family really didn't have money to send me to college, so I had to figure it out myself. And my wife as well. She went to Rhode Island College, she had the same path. So I went to public school. I went to Catholic school up to grade 8. Then I went to public high school, Kingstown West. Then I went to URI. And I wanted to get in law enforcement from a very early age. From when I was trying to figure it out. So 3rd grade would be 9, I guess? 8, 9 years old. So there was a sergeant from the Cranston Police that came to St. Mary's School. And I remember it like it was yesterday. He was a big guy, he was wearing a white shirt, he was a sergeant. And he sat there, and we were in the library, and he was telling me about his line of work. And I could see the enthusiasm he had, I could see the love he had for law enforcement. And I remember saying to myself, well, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to be a policeman. And it never went away. It stayed like that for until I got on in this line of work. So I'm very indebted to this man. His name is Sergeant Chacon, and he'd long since passed. But I thanked him one day, you know, for instilling that in me. That's why I really try and go out to the schools and speak to young men and women, boys and girls, hoping maybe someday maybe I can make that impression on them, and they want to be in that great profession of law enforcement. So I was the kid that was sitting in that room that day, though, like, can I see your handcuffs? You know, was that gun loaded? You know, like, and he's going, of course it is. What do you think? I'm a policeman. What do you think? I'm going to go around with an empty gun? So, but I was that kid always asking these questions, and that fire never wavered until I got into that line of work. So, I'll tell you a bit about my family too. So, my wife and I have been married for 30,000 years, right, Tracy? 30 years. And it's been a great ride. I actually met Tracy the day I graduated the State Police Academy. She was an assistant press secretary to the governor, and she was there that day, and that was it, right? And so I have 2 beautiful children that grew up in South Kingstown. My son James is 27. He went to West Point. He just left the Army. Honorably discharged as a captain in the field artillery, and he's now getting in banking in New York City. And he's married to a beautiful young lady who he met the day he graduated West Point, which is kind of ironic. And my beautiful daughter Olivia, she's feisty. I say she's like my wife. She says she's like me. And but Olivia went to Boston University, worked very hard, and she has her own business in New York. In skincare, cosmetics, and marketing. And she's very entrepreneurial, and I'm very proud of her as well. But she's a product of South Kingston, so is my son. Let me tell you, so I told you about my education, and URI, major in business. It was in a recession when I got out of college in 1983. It was very tough finding a job, especially in law enforcement. And I remember one boss in Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, where I tried out, and he said, you need to get a master's degree. I said, all right. So I went to Bryant and did a 2-year program in a year, because I just wanted to be a policeman. I wanted to figure out any way I could. And upon graduation, I was out for 2 weeks, and I was immediately hired by the U.S. Treasury Department as a IRS criminal investigator. So I had a financial background, which has helped me now with the budget that we have here in South Kingstown, $105 million budget. And but one thing, so I was in the IRS in 1984 for about a year, and so I've carried a badge in the IRS, the Secret Service, State Police, and even the Brown Park Police when I was in college. No one feared an agency more people did than the IRS. I went to a party once in New York with a friend of mine, and his father found out I was in the IRS and asked me to leave. And he's later indicted, I found out. All right. But that was a financial crime type job. That really was not what I desired. I wanted to be a grunt. I wanted to be working, doing good things every day, and that was more like an investigative job. But still, I wanted to be a trooper. I put my application in when I was 18. But still, the state police didn't hire for many years. And so I went in the Secret Service, U.S. Secret Service. I tried out thinking there's no way I'm going to get this, and I got it. So there's a reason why I got it. In 1981, President Reagan was shot. They hired 220 agents for the additional responsibilities of the Secret Service after that. I was one of those guys. So I started applying 1983, 84. I got in March 1st, 1985, and I stayed there for 5.5 years until my dream job opened on the state police. But I brought some pictures today just to show you some of the things I experienced. The Secret Service was a great ride. I got to see history being made. I stood next to some of the most powerful people that I still can't believe I stood next to. One was President Reagan, and this picture here is at his ranch. And I took that picture. I was standing here. And it's a sheep herder's ranch set on 800 acres in Santa Barbara, California. And I spent a month there with him. He used to go there in the summer. And to see President Reagan just acting like a regular guy, cutting firewood, driving a Jeep, shooting guns, telling jokes, was something I will never forget. It was like a highlight for me that I really can't believe I had that great opportunity. There's a funny story I'll tell you about this picture though. So Pacific Ocean was here, his landing craft was up here, which almost got hit on this visit. When his helicopter was coming in, a plane almost hit it, believe it or not. And we were posted all around him. But he used to sit right there on a picnic table and read books and clean guns. And one day we got a call on the radio from the command post, which was up here, and they said Rawhide, that was his code name, was going to do some target practice on the hill. Well, he didn't know we were up there, because they didn't want him to know we were all around him. So we started shooting into the hill. We all had to take cover on the other side. Now, they told us that might happen, so it wasn't like it was a surprise. So, but that was, he's a great man. It was a great period in my life to see this iconic figure, and that was something I was very, very happy I had the opportunity to do. The next picture is Queen Elizabeth in the middle. I'm on the left, the guy with the hair, believe it or not. So I put that up. That's right, Tracy fell in love with me right there with all that hair. So, but everyone looks at that picture thinking I'm the guy on the right who's bald, but it's not. That's not me. So I'm the guy on the left. That was her 60th birthday. She came to Lexington, Kentucky, and she loved horses. And whenever a head of state came into the United States, they put a Secret Service detail on them to protect them while they were here, along with the counterparts. The British Secret Service was there. But we had primary jurisdiction, and I was on her shift, and I worked the day shift protecting the Queen, which is another really interesting moment for me, because to see the English way of life and how they treat their people was different. She was very nice, but you could tell there was a hierarchy there that did not exist here. And the protectees, the presidents, President Reagan, Bush, all the people that we protected when I was on the job there, was so nice to us. Mrs. Bush, President Bush's wife, Barbara, treated us like she was our mother. And but to see the difference in, the Queen was like all business, but she was still very nice. So I looked on, I watched The Crown. I didn't see myself on the show. I'm a little disappointed. But next picture is, that's Air Force One. That's in South Dakota in 1988. Someone snapped a shot of that, some newspaper, someone sent me the picture. But I'm in the front on the tarmac. President Bush was on that trip, and that plane, the reason I like that picture, that plane was a Boeing 707, the older ones, and that is the plane that brought back JFK's body from Dallas on that fateful day. And also that is the plane that's hanging at the Reagan Museum. So if you ever get to Simi Valley, California, that's the plane. And it was, you know, once again, that was just a picture taken and someone gave it to me. On a side note, my wife and I, about 10 years ago, they had a reunion there, and I got to bring Tracy back to the Reagan Ranch and the Reagan Museum. And I think she got a big kick out of it, seeing all the guys I worked with, and it was just a very nice trip. I actually said to Tracy, President Reagan kept a diary, and it was he hand wrote it, but it's an electronic diary now, because they put it on film. And when we were at the museum, I said to Tracy, check this date in his diary. I think I know what he wrote. And she was looking at me like, what do you mean by that? And I think the exact date was sometime in August of 1986 or 87. I forgot the date now. But that was the day that someone who stole an airplane almost hit his aircraft when he was landing, because I was there. And I told her about it, and she flipped to the date, and I said, read it to me. And he said something like, close call today when they landed and an airplane almost hit us, or whatever he wrote in there. And my wife's like, how'd you know that? I said, well, I was there. That's how I know it. So those are the moments that really made such an impact on me, that I was there. I saw something in history that took place, and I just happened to be there. That was a very memorable moment. So even though I was in the Secret Service and that was a great place, it was a great occupation, I'm so honored to have done it, I wanted to move home. I'm a Rhode Islander. I miss this state. Every time I saw something, headline or something going on in the state, I just said, I gotta get home. I really want to go home. And so I made the decision to apply to the Rhode Island State Police, and I got in 1990. I got in the academy. That was one of the toughest experiences to get through that academy. It's very challenging. It's made to be that way, to make troopers humble and to respect everyone, and so they walk around with a chip on their shoulder. And it worked. And it was truly an honor to be a member of the Rhode Island State Police, which I dreamed about since I was a young boy. So I had a great career. Started out the best years of my life with that as a trooper. And I was on the road for 9 years before I got promoted to corporal. My first barracks was the Hope Valley Barracks, where I met Lieutenant Bowman, who was a trooper at the time. And Ken, I remember a story that I'm going to tell that I don't know if you'll remember. So I was at the barracks the first week I was there, and I was on the radio, the dispatcher, and then Trooper Bowman and the other trooper were out on the road running together. And I saw a mouse run by in the back room. So the next night I brought a mouse trap, and I put the mouse trap out, and I caught the mouse. So Trooper Bowman came in the barracks. I said, hey, I caught that mouse that was in the room in the back. He said, what mouse? I said, the one that was in the back room where we eat. He said, that's the barracks mouse. I said, did you kill that? I said, yeah. He goes, that mouse has more time on the job than you do. You said you killed that mouse? So I was like, yep, this is going to be a long career right here.
Is that true?
But once again, I had a great career. I loved being a road trooper. That was the best title I had, trooper. Not corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, even colonel, trooper. That was the title, because I got to help people. I got to make a difference in people's lives. I truly feel like I did. But then you start going up the ranks. After 9 years, I was promoted to corporal. 13 years sergeant. 18 years lieutenant. 21 years, 22 years captain, 23 years major. And I wrote it out. Now, troopers had a 25-year retirement, mandatory retirement back then. So at the 25-year mark, I stayed to the last minute of the last day, and I retired. Shortly thereafter, I became the town manager of Narragansett, because the skill set of someone in upper ranks on a police department is very similar to the skill set of a town manager. Plus, the town manager was really involved in things, and I really liked that. So I was there for just under 3 years as a town manager in Narragansett, a job I enjoyed, and then Governor Raimondo came to me and said, I'd like you to come back as the superintendent of the state police. And my first reaction was, well, I got a pretty good life going right now. Do I really want to do this? But it took me about 3 minutes to make that decision. Yes. I was the 14th superintendent. The 100-year anniversary of the state police is coming up in 2025. So to be asked to be the superintendent of the state police is something every young trooper dreams of, and I jumped at it, and I never regretted it. I did that for about 3.5 years, just under.
What about the part where you said when we met that you would be colonel someday?
And I also said I'd win the lottery. I haven't won that yet. So Tracy's correct. I said I'm going to be the colonel someday. So I went back, and that 3 years and 3.5 years approximately, that was a tough period to go back in to the state police. It was an honor to do it, but I got to tell you, that was a tough period of time to be in law enforcement, and especially be the head of a police organization that had so much responsibility. Think about it. I was there for about a year. We had COVID, civil unrest, COVID again, election fraud, COVID again. There were some unpleasant things that happened in Providence and surrounding areas that I could not believe happened in this state. The country was in the midst of turmoil. We had a riot in Providence on June 2nd, 2020. It was several hundred people, but they burned a police car. They really tried to hurt our state and our city, and many of them were from out of state that did it. That was an eye-opener for me. Never thought I'd see that. I remember standing on the steps of the State House going, I can't believe what's going on right now. But the whole country was going through it. So that was a very tough period of time, very pivotal period of time for this state. I'm very proud to say the state police was instrumental in keeping the state safe. And that was a very pivotal moment in my life. We worked a lot of hours, 70, 80, 90 hours a week, many weeks. I told my wife from day one when I went back as the superintendent that I want to be a town manager again, and I want to be in South Kingstown. So that was the only job I would have left the state police for. So after about 3.5 years, and I only intended to stay about 4, this job became available, and I went for it. And I was very fortunate to get it. It's truly a job I love. Thank you. It is truly a job I love. And I go to work, first of all, I'm close to home. I'm dealing with people I know. I'm going through Wakefield, places I've been stomping here since the 90s. And I went to URI, before that. But and you see the same people. We have a small town, we have a big small town, or a small big town, depending on how you look at it. But the nicest people, it's a jewel. That's why we've been discovered, right? Well, housing prices are up because of it. But it's been such an honor to be the town manager for the past 18, 19 months. I'm very appreciative of this position. So that's my story. That's how I look through this, my public service at every level. And I knew it was something, that's what I wanted when I was a young boy, to feel like I was doing something, to help people. And I hope that will be my legacy someday. So let's switch gears a little. We'll go on to the next part of this discussion. Let's talk about the Rhode Island State Police connection to South Kingstown. There's a huge connection here. the first superintendent of the Rhode Island State Police, let me tell you how the State Police was founded. On April 2nd, 1925, was the official first day of the Rhode Island State Police. Why did the state of Rhode Island need a state police agency? Why did New England need state police agencies? The population of Rhode Island at the time was about 650,000 people. Most were in the urban areas: Cranston, Providence, Pawtucket, Central Falls, all the big mill towns where the Industrial Revolution started and progressed. But there was a real need for the rural communities to have some type of law enforcement that had jurisdiction to enforce the laws. Prior to that, there were constables appointed by town councils and so forth, that they had authority in their towns. But what happens when it crosses the state line, the town-city lines? Not much. And there was crime. There was gambling, prohibition. There was in effect. Brothels. So I read first colonel wrote a book, and I read his book twice. I read it last week again, called The Amateurs. And the first post, one of the worst places in the state, was Block Island. Gambling. All kind of stuff going on there at these hotels. First post the trooper stood was at the Yellow Kittens. Yellow Kittens is still there. So, and then there were union strikes that up in the northern part of the state, Manville, major strikes where they were very violent. The National Guard got called in, people got killed. It was a very tumultuous time in the 1920s here in the state and all over. So that's why they needed a state police agency with statewide jurisdiction. And the reason the colonel called this group of 700 people applied, 30 got selected, 23 graduated the academy, all military veterans from World War I. Colonel Everett St. John Chaffee, the first superintendent of the state police, was a colonel in the 103rd Field Artillery in World War I. He was a war hero. Our uniform was modeled after a World War I artillery officer. The red piping on our uniform signifies artillery. They were called red legs back then. My son was a red leg. He was an artillery officer. Red was on his uniform. Each branch had a different color. It was modeled after a World War I field artillery officer and the Canadian Mounted Police. And Colonel Chaffee was the one that came up with this uniform. He had a house off the Commodore Perry Highway. The current owners are here. Mr. and Mrs. Sarava, thank you for coming. He was a wealthy aristocrat, the first colonel. He went to Yale. He was a lawyer. So after World War I, he went to law school, became a lawyer, and worked in a law firm in Providence. He was from New York. He married a girl from Rhode Island. He was an aristocrat, and he was in the upper echelons of society. He bought a beautiful vacation home that the Saravas now live in. And it was a stone structure with barns and beautiful fields, and it was right off Route 1 near opposite, Matunic Oyster Bar exit. And so in 1925, when the state police was founded, he hired the first troopers. In July of 1925, he brought them down to the South Kingstown barracks, the first barracks, at his house, and that's where the troopers trained. That's where that picture was taken. So in the back, it's called Moon Hill. And that, the date on the picture that someone wrote on the picture when they gave it to was 1928. But talking to Lieutenant Bowman, he seems to think that's the first graduating class, which makes more sense. So, but if you look, the troopers were issued motorcycles, scabbards with rifles in them, and that's how they patrolled. Sharp-looking group of troopers right there. And if you look at most of the historical pictures, they're in South Kingstown. They're on our side roads. You can still recognize some of the homes on there. The first trooper ever killed in the line of duty was at that facility right there. He was driving a motorcycle and was hit by a car that the brakes failed. Very sad. But you can see the history of South Kingstown and the Rhode Island State Police. In the Colonel's book, he told a couple of funny stories that I'll share with you. I mean, if we did this today, we'd all be in jail, but but they are kind of funny. So the troopers used to live right there in the barn. They used to swim in the pond behind it. They learned how to drive their vehicles on the roads. But they used to get up, run to East Matunic, and do pistol training. They used to throw bottles in the water and shoot at them at East Matunic. Can you imagine doing that now? There's another really funny story about that. I guess Colonel Chaffee was tough as nails. His own children had to salute him in the morning when they woke up. And, but he, so the troopers used to run through the dirt roads which connects that road, Route 1, and Tuckertown. And I've been on those roads. I've gone hunting out there. Every time I go up there, I feel like this ghost following me around. But these are where these troopers trained, right here. And a trooper got lost, a student trooper, a recruit, got lost. And when they all got back to the colonel's house, we're missing one. They all went back to look for him, they couldn't find him. He finally called, and the colonel answered. And he said, I'm lost somewhere on Tuckertown Road. He went to a farmhouse and used the phone. So the colonel said to him, well, how did you get there? He said, I ran. He goes, good, run back. And he hung up on him, right? So he wrote that in his book as well. So the connection to, I think that's where Joanne and I came up with this concept of talking about this, right, at this, because Rhode Island State Police, a lot of people didn't know that. I really didn't know it until many years I was on the state police. Colonel Chaffee came up with many things. Came up with our uniform, our honor code, our division creed, our morals. You go to any barracks today, there's still old memos hanging up about the honor you should have, how you should be treating people. Nothing will be tolerated if you stray outside those lines. But the colonel wrote our division creed. I read it and it still sends a chill up my spine. And here's what it says. You are always to remember that you are in the Department of State Police and in the service of the state. That's the motto, service of the state. It is a call of honor. It requires unselfish devotion to duty, highest type of honesty, and downright courage. He used to read that to the troopers every shift when they started and when they ended. And this creed is hanging all throughout any of our facilities. And still means a lot to me that that's the code we lived by, and I hope it's another 100 years that it goes by and they still live by, and I think they will, for sure. So, I will, I'll open it up for questions at this point. Should be right on time, right? About 40 minutes?